Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Doctor, good Erev Shabbos. Thank you for making time.
Yes. Tomorrow we're learning in shul at 5:30. Correct, Mario?
Yes.
Okay, good. We're on
Hafvav.
above 26 Mishnah. Nechasim sheyesh l'achrayas. That's karka, right? Assets that have achrayas means that you can collect. It means it's if there's a note on the land, and if the person doesn't have money to pay off the note, the guy can collect the land instead. And if there's an earlier lien, you can go and collect it from the, let's say things were sold off. That's only karka as opposed to metaltalin. So a synonym for nechasim sheyesh l'achrayas is karka. And karka is acquired, right? We've been going through, how do you acquire a shivcha? How do you acquire an eved ivri? How do you acquire an eved kanani? Right? So how do you acquire karka? Niknim bekesav b'shtar v'chazaka. And
why don't we say a synonym is batim?
No.
Why do we always say karka?
Well, because batim is a house.
But houses are the same. This yesh behem achrayas.
No, but the karka refers to a sadeh, to a field that produces grain or fruit, that gives off, because like a woman would get a field to support her ksuba. So certainly a house meets the criteria because it's built on karka. But I would say the normal karka, the thought that you should have in mind when you say karka is a sadeh, a field, fruit field, grain field, that kind of thing. But it's any karka. You buy commercial real estate on Rodeo
Right,
Drive.
that's yesh behem achrayas.
Huh?
That has achrayas.
Of course. Okay, so why do you think buy it is a more general term than karka? Karka reflects a buy it because a house is built on karka, but it also means a field and an open lot or anything, any land. Right?
Okay.
So nechasim sheyesh l'achrayas, which is karka, nikni bekesef b'shtar v'chazak. Money, shtar, we'll see what chazak is. Like you fence it, or you actually move onto the land. Now, she'ein lahen achrayas, meaning metaltalin, ein niknin ela b'meshicha. You have to draw it to you. You have to take possession of it. Nechasim she'ein lahen achrayas. However, metaltalin are niknin in nechasim sheyesh l'achrayas. That's called an agav kinyan. That means if you sell a field and you have rakes and shovels, and I make a kinyan for the karka, I can acquire the metaltalin along with the karka. That's called an agav kinyan. And through any mechanism that I acquired the karka, meaning kesef shtar chazaka, I can acquire the metaltalin as well. Then it works in the reverse. Now, we have a concept of moide b'miktzas. I loan Kenny $100. And Kenny says, no, you only loaned me $50. So he admits to $50 of the loan. So he's a moide b'miktzas. He has to take a shvua to say, I don't owe the other 50. Now, if I claim to somebody that you owe me 1,000 acres of land because of a deal we made, and he says, no, I admit to 500 acres. So karka, you don't take a shvua regarding moide b'miktzas by karka. However, if part of the deal involves metaltalin, like you did one of these agav kinyonim, and somehow you only admit to some of the metaltalin, because you're a moide b'miktas by metazla, which creates a chi of shvua, you have to take a shvua on the as well. That's what this Mishnah is telling us. Okay. So the Gemara says, "Bekesef mino." How do I know that karka is acquired bekesef? Amar Chizki Amar Kra. It says in Yirmiyah, "Sados bakesef yiknim." Okay, sounds like you make a kinyan on a field with kesef. Maybe you need both. Maybe unless you also have a star, the kesef isn't coined. And why would I think that? Tichsiv v'chasov b'sefer v'chasom. Over there in Yirmiyah, it says, "And you shall write it in a document and sign it." So if you would have said iksiv yiknu levasov, v'chasov b'sefer v'chasom, and v'yiknu, so I would say kidik amrit. Hashdu dichsiv yiknu mikara. It says sodos b'kesef yiknu before you talked about v'chasov b'sefer. So it tells me kesef kani, the kinyan was effectuated by the kesef, and the star raya balmuhu. The star is just documentation, but it's not actually the mechanism by which the kinyan was effected. Amar Rav Loishan al b'makom shein koitz v'nisar star. When do we say that karka is acquired by kesef alone? That's only in a locale where they don't have a sofer and they don't write shtaros. But I would think that in a place where you do write shtaros, then the kinyan is not affected until the star is given. The parish. And if the guy who gave money and he wants it just to acquire it with the money, and if he says, "I want to acquire it with money only," parish, then it works. When he would buy land, he would say, "I want it all to be in my hands. If I want to close the kinyan with money, I want to close it. And because if I want to close with money, I want it to be a kinyan. Why? That if you go back after you paid money or after I paid money, you don't have a right to keep the land anymore. But I am not going to accept possession of the land until I actually get the start, which gives me the right to walk away from the deal up until the last minute. Now, how do you know that you can acquire karka with a start? You shall write it in a document, and edim sign. But you told me before, the star was just documentation of what happened. It's not the actual thing that makes the kinyan. So the sefer hamikna is the star that acquired the acquisition. But Shmuel says that only works with a star you're giving a gift. The star does not make the kinyan without money. So Masif Rav Amnuna, Bishtar Ketsa. How do you buy a field with a star? Kosav lo al niyar o al acheres. You wrote a document on a piece of paper or a pottery that are not worth a shava pruta. Ava b'shem shava pruta, and you write, Sadi mechurlach, my field is sold to you. Or Sadi nesunlach, my field is given to you. Hareza mechura unesuna. You see, even without kesef, the star closes the deal. So that's a kashan Shmuel, who said, Lo kana achitin lo dami. Who moistif lavu mefarikla. He accepted the kasha, but he answered it. B'moicher sodeh b'nei rasa. The moicher wants to get rid of the field because it's depreciating, and he wants to complete the title transfer to another person quickly. In that case, the writing of the shtar will finish the king. Rav Ashi Amar b'maton bikesh litnei lo. You can also explain the beraisa, not in a sale, but in a matana. So he wanted to give him a gift. The lama because of lo loshen mecher. Well, why did he write it as a transaction, as a sale? Kidei liyapas kocho, to strengthen his hand. Because if the field had been leaned to other lenders, he could acquire it because it was given. He can acquire it from those people because he was given the koch of a sale, not a matana. And since this is that specific case, the shtar completes the transaction. Uvachazaka mino Amar Chizkiya, Amar Kra, Ushvu barechem asher tefastem. Also, it's a pasuk in Yirmiyah. Bamet tefastem b'yeshiva. You squatted on the land. That's chazaka. Dver Rabbi Shmuel Tonav Yirishtem Osav Yishaftem Ba. Bameh Yirashtem b'yeshiva, by squatting on the land. V'shein la'nachrayis ein niknei el b'meshicha. Metatlin, you have to take the possession of the metatlin. Minalon t'chsiv. If you're going to sell something to your friend, o kano miyad amisecha, davar anikne miyad liyad. We're talking about something that passes from hand to hand, which is metatlin. Ul Rav Yochanan da Amar dvar Torah ma'oskon. It's really midaraisa. When you use cash, you can acquire metatlin even with cash. So according to him, Michael Amemar, it showed it. The Tana mentioned Meshicha, which is a Takana Drabonon. We don't want to just rely on cash because the guy, if I buy with cash wheat that the guy has in his attic, he's not going to be shomer it carefully and it's going to burn up in a fire. So we say, be moishech into your possession. Then we said, Nechasim she'ein lahen achrayis, are acquired as an agav kinyan with karka. Menonim Eliyahu Chizkiya Damar Kra, vayiten lahem aviyam matanos, im arei mitzuros b'Yehuda, a pasuk in Divrei Yomi. But he gave gifts which were metaltalin that were given along with the cities that he got. He didn't have to give it b'Mashicha. It was given agav the carcass that he acquired. Do the metaltalin have to be gathered up on that piece of land or not? Even a small piece of land is chayiv in peya and bikurim. And for your note not to be able to be collected after Shemitah, and you have to have it assigned to a certain amount of karka, even a small amount of karka is enough. Also, even a small piece of land is enough to be able to acquire metatlin through this agav kinyan. If you need the metatlin to be gathered up on the land, kol shulam achazi. How much can you put on a little piece of land? It was a big enough piece of land, you could put a needle in it. That's not an answer. there was a diamond worth $100,000 attached to the needle. So you can put a lot of metaltalin even on a small piece of land. Toshma. There was a person from Madon. Who had a lot of metaltalin. BK Shlitnim Madon, he wanted to give it as a gift. You need to make an agav kinyan with land. He bought a place called Beit Sel in Yerushalayim. The Omar, Tzfoni Zel Ploni, the north part of this piece of land I want to give to Chaim Yaakov. The Imo Mea Tzonu Mea Chavios. And with the land, I want to give him 100 sheep, 100 barrels. Umeis. The Kimu Estvarav, the Chachunim fulfilled his words. If you have to gather all of this on the land that you're giving, Beis Sela my chazi, this small little Beis Sela is not enough to put all that stuff there. So the Gemara says that's no proof. Mitzav is Beis Sela, Sela Mamish, Beis Sela, the Nafish Tuva, piece of land. And maybe it was Roy to put all that stuff there. V'amai karule Sela, the Koshi Kisela. It was a hard piece of land like a Sela. So that's why it was called like Sela, but it doesn't refer to its size. Toshma. There was a person who's sick. Rabbi Eliezer holds that even a shchivmara needs to do a complete kinyan. Or it's a bari kirabana. See, according to Chachamim, a shchivmara doesn't have to do a complete kinyan. So the example, according to Chachamim, is a healthy person.
Why doesn't a shchiv mirah have to do a kinyan? Full kinyan?
Because he's on his deathbed. So I want to give this to Chaim Young. So the Chachamim made the kinyanim easier because we don't want him to get upset.
So it's interesting. I'm just noting that today in secular law, it's the exact opposite. That when people do things on their deathbed or late in life, they're always questionable. Right. If you do it if we were makel on in secular law, lahavdil, we're machmir on the evidence that needs to be that the person's of sound mind and etc. when they do things late in life.
Well, Chazal, here we're talking about a shchiv mara who's of sound mind, because even halacha recognizes
a 95-year-old person, doctor, of sound mind who decides to give all of his property to his girlfriend as opposed to his children will be questioned in court. No question about it.
I understand. And even Chazal, in the case of a shchiv mara, will have to determine that he was of sound mind, that he had das, because your point is very well taken. If the shchiv mara does not have das, then what he said will also be questioned. But let's assume we're talking about somebody who's a shchiv mara. He's not a goses. He's not a goses.
He's of sound mind, and we don't put any impediments in his way.
Just the opposite. Exactly. Normally, you need to do formal kinyonim, shtar, meshicha. So a shchiv mara can make a matana verbally. Even though normal verbally we don't accept. We want it documented in a shtar or a kinyan. But al peh, we listen to what, like a shchiv mara says, give a divorce to my wife. Remember, we learned this. Even it doesn't say sign it, document it, adim, all that, because we're concerned of tiruf das, that he's going to go meshiga, that what he wants done is not going to be done. So yes, Chazal are makel regarding that, which it sounds like in secular law
they're not.
Well, they're very much more careful because they assume that an elderly person may not be of sound mind, and that he changed his will or whatever the story was, and in a chanami. But Chazal, you have to be of sound mind as a Shchiv Mara as well. And if somebody questions that he's not of sound mind, Chazal will take that into account. Because you have to have das.
This
If
guy
there's no
gave
das, you can't
his
make a
son,
kinyan.
Kenny, this guy gave his son, he didn't like, he gave him a chicken and $18. Chai kak.
That's funny. Nope.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, no, it's a good point. So, there was a Shchiv Mara. Shahayu lo metatun harbe ubikesh litem b'maton. No, Shchiv Mara according to Rabbi Lozer, or a regular person according to Chacham, who had a lot of metatun. Omer lo en l'takonat sheiknem al gabi karka. There's so much here, he can't do Mashiach on every. You should give it to him through karka. Ma'as halach v'lokach beis rova son bought a piece of land, the size of a beis rova. The Omar tefach al tefach, a fist by a fist, is given to Ploini v'imo me'atzonu me'achavir. Now, you can't put 100 sheep and 100 barrels on a fist by a fist worth of land. Yet, mace, the kaimel chachamim is vara. V'yamer be'inan sibur, and if you're going to answer me that you need to have the metatl that you're giving over with the land, physically to be on that land, tefach al tefach l'may chazi. What can you put on a tefach al tefach? Hachma eskina on lidmei. We're talking about is the money value. Let's say it was valued at $10,000. You could put the $10,000 on a tefach al tefach. That's what he was talking about. Hachanami mistavra, and that makes logical sense. Mamish niknu nila b'chalipin. Why did they want a agav? Why did they need a karka agav kinyan? Do a kinyan chalipin. Like when we sell our chametz to Rabbi Krause, he picks up a pen.
Rabbi Siegelman.
I'm sorry. I did it with Rabbi Krause for 40 years. With Rabbi Siegelman.
How about with Rabbi Einhorn?
With Rabbi Einhorn. So use kinyan chalipin. But money can't be acquired with chalipin. And therefore he wanted to put money down. And that's why he needed karka, because he couldn't use kinyan chalipin. Elamai, what are you going to tell me? Dmei, that we're not talking about the actual metatlin. We're talking about its money value, and that money value is not koine b'chalipin. You still could have done something else. Niknu niala b'mashicha. You could have been moshech the cash. What do you have to go through agav kinyan with karka? Ella the lesser mekabel matana. What was the guy that you want to give the gift to wasn't physically there, and therefore he couldn't do the mashiach on the cash. And he was in Montana, and this piece of land that he bought was in Montana. He wants to do the kinyan where he is.
Must be talking about Kenny. He has land in Montana.
Right. Achanami, the lesser mekabel matana. Yeah, we're talking about where he's not there, and he couldn't acquire it b'chalipin. Still free to go up in this kinu niala agav acher. Let Kenny or whoever I'm giving the gift to appoint a shaliach, and the shaliach will do the mashiach on his behalf. Lo samcha daite. He wasn't going to rely on somebody else because sover shamet v'achaluhu. That maybe the shaliach will go spend the money or use the asset. So he wanted a more secure kinyan. Elamai ein lo takana. So what do you mean there was no takana except for an agav karka kinyan? We just mentioned a whole bunch of different alternatives. So hachi comment. This is what you have to understand. L'mayda lo samcha daita. Why wasn't he going to rely on somebody else? Ein lo takana. In that case, ein lo takana shiknim al gabi karka. Then, of course, in that case, you have to do a karka kinyan. I'm going to stop here because this begins a new case, which we will learn in detail tomorrow in shul.
Good.
But tomorrow,
Okay.
tomorrow's
Thank
5:30.
you. Good Shabbos, everybody.
Shabbos, everybody.
Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos.
Shabbat shalom, everybody. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.